Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. I will not be doing an exploration for this one as well, but we're going to call this day 2 of the Doom invasions, even though it's technically only day 1 of the Doom invasions in particular, but it's day 2 in the invasions in general. But I will be breaking down these nodes, talking about some counter tips and tricks kind of things that I have, just kind of bidding a good starting point for the community out there, for anybody who may be having trouble with a specific path for any kind of reason, just kind of giving you that information so you can warm up with it. And I have confirmed that these nodes do change and these champion fights do change. So like I had an Iron Man Infinity War here where this Sabretooth was, and that changed. Also, like the She-Hulk was a Nightcrawler for me. So if you see a path and it's like really problematic for you, try one of the other ones first and maybe you'll get lucky. That said, let's go ahead and jump right in with the paths, and then I'll knock the boss out afterwards. So this first path is Kinetic Transference, Extinction Protocol, and Aspect of Evolution. It shows that these nodes are definitely pre-planned. I don't think these are random because they really synergize with each other. So Kinetic Transference is whenever you block an attack from the defender will gain power. Additionally, if that is a perfect block, they will gain twice as much power from it. Extinction Protocol is that for the amount of power the attacker has, the defender gains increased damage, as well as their special attacks allow them to have an increased amount of power rate by 15% for the remainder of the fight. And then finally, Aspect of Evolution is every time they fill a bar of power, they gain bonus pretty much everything in the course of the fight. So essentially, this is just like Power Control is the name of the game, so you're going to want to bring Hawkeye, Vision. They have really good special ones that power drain, so you'll get to ignore a lot of these mechanics. You can bring Doc Ock, Magic. Those are really good options as well. Otherwise, you're going to want to bring people who just hit really, really, really hard and can just blast through this and not have to worry about the opponent getting to like an SP3 or running into any kind of troubles along that way. And if you're running like a lower roster, anybody who can tank Special 3 safely is also a potential option there because you might find yourself in a position of having to do that. Stark Enhanced Spider-Man is also a really good option there. Ghost and Quake, of course, are counters to mostly everything, will work there as well. Next up is this middle path here. We have Electric Fluctuations, Debilitate, and Biohazard. Debilitate just makes your debuffs last longer, so try not to get parried, try not to proc any debuffs. And this one is the duration of the attacker's buffs are reduced by 5 seconds, and if you are a robot, they suffer 70% reduced ability accuracy, and that is really important that they target robots like that because like one of the most common counters to Biohazard is robots, so do be mindful that reduced ability accuracy in this case does work against parry, so if you're bringing in robots you have to watch out for that. As always, Quake and Ghost are great options here. Omega Red and Ghost both benefit greatly from Biohazard nodes, so highly recommend those as options if you have. Otherwise, any standard bleed immune champion is really good for this path that isn't a robot. So you got Iceman, Emma Frost if you stay in diamond form. I'm struggling to name other champions right now. I do apologize, but there are plenty of bleed champions in the game. Just pick one. And then the thing to remember there is if your champion is not both bleed and poison immune, that you can't hit into your opponent's block because that will trigger poison. So that is pretty much how you handle this fight. Let's say you don't have any bleed immunes, you only have hard hitting champions. Anyone that can like parry heavy or any kind of like low hit meter pummel the opponents down is also a potential counter here. It's just not ideal, but if you're really lacking for options in the bleed immunity, you could run like full Domino Trinity and just try to blow them up before Biohazard works, and then just heal up between fights and handle it that way. Finally is this last path, or what I think is probably the easiest path to handle as long as you can get around not hitting into the opponent's block. And so this is Armor, Heavy-Handed, and Explosive Personality. Heavy-Handed in this situation is specials dealing increased damage based on the amount of armor they have. Armor, again, synergizing with the Heavy-Handed. And then Explosive Personality. Explosive Personality is every time you hit into the defender's block, they gain a armor up. And when they hit 5, you, the attacker, lose 25% of your max health. Essentially, you can only hit into their blocks 20 times before you've just killed yourself. So essentially here, you can bring anyone you want. just make sure that you're not hitting into the opponent's blocks. And like probably the most comfortable way to do this is anyone that does a parry heavy kind of a play style is very easy to work around this without having to change your game style up very much. But otherwise, just make sure that you go in with your combos properly. Just be mindful that if you have someone like a Black Panther Civil War here, this is properly frustrating because he does trigger that stun immunity, so you got to get either good at intercepting or bring someone who has like high amounts of stagger. Finally, we have the boss nodes, and the boss nodes this time around are Redoubled Determination, Limber, and Rolling Thunder. So Limber is that the stun debuffs become reduced as you go over time, so just be mindful that if you're bringing someone with that parry heavy style, which is good for 2 out of the 3 paths, that eventually you won't be able to parry heavy because of Limber. Redoubled Determination here is important because essentially when you debuff them, they are going to gain significantly more power and have significantly higher attack. So you're going to want to bring people who aren't putting on specifically Bleed, Poison, or Armor Break, but for the most part you don't want to be debuffing your opponent. And then Rolling Thunder is that their special attack power increases over time. So you just want to make sure that you're dexing specials. We're bringing people like Daredevil once he's awakened, or Stark Enhanced Spider-Man just to do the evading for you, because evading these specials is going to be key to not taking just an absolute ton of block damage. So that said, that's the breakdown of today, and I will talk to you all later.